I'd like to welcome everybody to this very special press conference at Dynamic Disc here. We're very proud to announce 2 signings over the last 2 days. These in addition to some other signings, Gavin Rathbun, Valerie Manduhano, I'm going to have to get that pronounced correctly, Mason Ford, and then of course Matt Oram at Westside Discs. We're really happy that we were able to announce those over the last couple of weeks as well. But today is all about Kona Panis and Ricky Wysocki. We have a handful of members of the press that are here in person. We're going to start the press conference with their questions first. Then what we'll do is we'll switch over to our Zoom press members, and I think we've got close to 16 or 17 of them here at the press conference to also ask questions. So again, thank you guys for attending, and without further ado, we'll bring up Kona Panis.
Hi, Kona.
Make sure to introduce yourself and who you're with.
Dixon Jowers, on the box of Dixon Jowers. Congratulations, first of all, Kona. Historic contract, right up there with the top with Kristen. So this contract puts you on that level of the biggest names, the biggest paid. Does that put any sort of pressure on you as far as performance goes?
Yeah, so I've got this question a few times already, and of course, you know, moving companies and having new discs and molds that I've never thrown before. I've thrown a few, obviously, back in the day, but it definitely puts pressure. But also having a company like Dynamic Discs and, you know, Jeremy and Eric behind me, like, fully support, it kind of takes that pressure off.
Bobby, disc golf answer man. So with you being so ingrained and so long with Innova, like kind of walk us through how your decision process of saying goodbye to Innova and coming over to Dynamic Discs.
So I was with Innova, and I have nothing but respect for them. You know, they took a chance on me at a very young age when I was still an amateur, very unproven, and nothing but love for them. But they have so many top-tier women, and I just didn't feel like I was getting the representation and promotion that I fully deserve, just because it's hard to be in that big of a pond with that many fish. You know, like people like Evelina and Henna and, you know, some top tier women, it's hard to really show even when you're on tour full time. And unfortunately, my dad, you know, is a big part of Team Innova, and he's on the marketing side. And, you know, as much as I wanted to be like, you know, promote me a little bit more, it was tough. It felt almost like if I did that, there would be favoritism involved. And so leaving Innova was definitely emotional. I have a lot of connections there, but, you know, I'm looking towards my future, especially with my fiance. We're getting married this year, and, you know, I want to prepare myself for the future and all of that ahead.
Dixon, again, will that be weird with you and Colton kind of standing behind 2 different competing companies?
Not really. You know, when Discmania left Innova this past year, and we still toured in the Freak together and everything, and it almost feels like it's a better this way, because Latitude makes Discmania discs and Dynamic discs, so it's kind of like there's some sort of connection still there. Obviously, I won't be able to throw any of his Tour Series discs, but I don't see any problem with that.
I have another one. Yeah. So with all these big contracts, we are getting to know what players are making, what they actually get from the manufacturers. And some of the controversy is we want to know more about what players make. Do you think that's something that should happen more often, knowing what players make?
I think it should, especially for the female side of disc golf. Obviously, when Kristen announced her 125K, I had talked to Eric McKay before. He'd reached out a few times during the season, and I immediately was like, dude, is this something that maybe Dynamic Discs would be able to offer me? And so that kind of sparked a conversation. And I think it's just going to spark more conversations. I think other women who may not be getting the same treatment and are amazing players might see that. And I mean, we saw, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but Katrina Allen, one of our top athletes, Player of the Year of 2021, just left a company of 9 years. So maybe she's seeing that there's more opportunity and bigger money elsewhere.
Taking Terhune with KVOE. We've heard a lot of people talk about how this is kind of changing the sport and in a way kind of validates the sport. Would you agree with that? And how so do you think that that's the case?
I definitely feel it validates the sport, and going back to what Bobby said, that being able to see these numbers, I believe that people from the outside who may not think disc golf is a real sport and that we're just throwing plastic, I like saying plastic circles. People used to make fun of me in high school for throwing plastic circles. So, seeing that now there's bigger money and that Disc Golf Network is definitely taking us to that next level of professionalism.
Outside of Paul, nobody really in the disc golf world, MPO or FPO, has really shown the ability to be able to move discs to justify hundreds of thousands of dollars. So is there a pressure on you to perform, to get out there on social media, to kind of justify the expense that's being laid out?
I don't think there's a lot of pressure. Obviously, I think Dynamic Discs sees the value in my social media presence and how, when I was with Innova Discs, I actually pushed the Mako 3. I was actually one of their top sellers, and that's pretty awesome being a female and also being able to push that amount of discs. So I don't really have a lot of pressure in that. I think I'm going to be putting out a whole lot of content this season, a lot more on YouTube, and promoting Dynamic Discs as a brand.
We spoke briefly a moment ago, and one thing that you brought up was not only the stuff that you do on the course, but also what you're going to be doing off the course. How do you think that a signing like this, or what do you think it says to younger athletes, especially young female athletes, and what's possible in their careers?
Yeah, I think it's huge for the younger juniors that are coming into our sport. There's been a big boom this past 2 years, with COVID growing our sport and a lot of people joining the PDGA. When I was young and really looking at this sport, I looked up to like Paige Pierce and Katrina Allen, and I didn't really see disc golf as a career. It was something that like, oh, it's just their lifestyle, they do it for fun, blah, blah, blah. But nowadays, when you're seeing these big numbers, there's this girl, MJ, that I follow on Instagram. She's a junior. She actually won the junior event here in Emporia. And I think she sees it, and she's been practicing, and I think she sees, wow, like maybe if I take this seriously and I want to do it for a living, that I can.
Is there a particular shot or part of your bag that you're worried about losing, or a disc that you've come to rely on, that's your concern about getting the practice in?
So when I actually came to Dynamic Discs, I came with a whole new mindset, and that was, obviously I'm going to miss a few discs. Like I loved the Leopard 3, and obviously the Mako 3 was my Tour Series disc with Innova, but something that I came into this experience is to not really look for those same discs. Obviously, it's a completely different company. They're not all going to feel the same. They're not going to fly the same. So it's coming into it kind of with a fresh mind, almost like you would if you were to start the sport over. And I've actually been really enjoying trying all these new discs and just comparing flights and, flight numbers to the old discs that I used to fly, and more so comparing those and then going off of, feel and plastic that I'm liking.
Any other questions from our in-house press folks? Okay. We're going to now start having questions presented by the folks that are on the Zoom call. We appreciate you guys all being here for this press conference. And we're going to start with Matt Graham.
Hey, Kona, congratulations on this huge deal. I'm really excited for you on this. How important was it for you that the details of this deal were made public? Who brought that up? And then follow-up question, are you giving yourself a grace period when it comes to performing this year with a new disc lineup?
So like I said before, Kristen Tatar, she announced her number online, and like I said, it was like a big deal, and that was one of the main reasons I reached out to Dynamic Discs in the first place. And so it was a conversation I had with Eric and Jeremy, just like, do we want to make this public? Is it, should we or should we not? And it was kind of like, you know what, let's do it. Let's show these people that Dynamic Discs is willing to partner not only for 4 years, but for this amount of money. And I think that was huge. And then, no, there's no grace period between when I'll be starting the events. I'll be there for LVC. Obviously, I'll be there for All-Star Weekend if it's happening. I don't know what's going on. In the Disc Golf Con, I'll be there with Colton. We'll be doing some clinics and obviously be there selling some new plastic. So make sure to check us out while we're there as well. But I'll be there for LVC prepped and ready. I've been throwing with my bag. It's pretty much set. I'm adding maybe 2 or 3 other discs for specific shots, but I'm going to be ready for LVC.
Our next question comes from Zachary Kuykendall.
Hi, Kona. Zach with Disc Golf Network. One kind of question I wanted to ask, just related to the contract numbers. Do you feel like a contract like this, contracts like Kristen's contract, will start to entice more female athletes from other sports to come to disc golf with contract numbers getting so big?
Obviously, I think it would be a little bit difficult for them to just show up from a different sport without really playing disc golf. Just because we have veterans like, Katrina Allen and, Paige, who've been on the road for so long and are dominating. Obviously, there's people like Ella Hansen, who was Rookie of the Year this year, and she showed up with a cannon. So I'm sure we might get a few more athletes, maybe seeing that disc golf is maybe their next step, but I'll be curious to see that for sure.
Our next question is from Teresa Garcia.
Hi, Kona. I'm Teresa from UDisc. I just wanted to first off thank you for everything that you have done. You've really inspired a lot of FPO athletes like myself, so thank you for that off the bat. Basically, my question, kind of going back to your history, your first UDisc live event, if you remember, was Vibram in 2016. At that event, you only had 1 birdie, and ever since then, you have just been killing it and on this crazy upward trend. You're now 15th for the FPO field in birdie percentage in the top 10, ranked number 9th in our world rankings. If you could just give me a little bit of insight into if you have specific goals for any stats or world rankings or anything related to a specific part of your game this year.
Yeah, so obviously people who follow me on social media, I am very open about my struggles with disc golf and also my successes. And one of those is my putting. I've kind of gone through a lot of different putting styles, and I'm really trying to find one that I can stick with and have a lot of confidence with, because I am craving a world title and I would love to do it, with DD on my back this upcoming season. That's a lot to ask for, switching companies, but if you follow me on social media, again, this is the year of confidence. So believing that I can do it, and then honestly just putting in the hard work. So yeah, lots of putting, but I would love to see that birdie percentage go up even more.
Our next question comes from Dean.
Yeah, Kona, following up on that, through social media, we have seen you on both sides, from maybe like Last Cash into top 10 and then into top 5 and winning some big events, as we've seen. I'm over here in Europe, so I'm going to ask a European-centric question. What is the mindset with you and also the rest of the FPO field when you get 3 huge names in Evelina, Henna, and Kristen over there in the States, hopefully next year? But what's the mindset like when top 5s become top 10s and top 10s become top 15s and on down the line?
Yeah, so I've struggled with confidence and believing in myself for a long time, and obviously, like I've said over and over, joining a new company and having the support of Jeremy and Eric and everyone at Dynamic Discs has really bumped my confidence. And having Kristen and Evelina and Henna, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see how they compete in the States for sure. But the mindset, it's just once I won Waco, and it wasn't like, oh, it didn't just fall into my lap. I won by 12 strokes, and that was an amazing feeling. And to be able to recreate that would be amazing, and it will be amazing because I can see it in my future, and it's a lot of visualizing.
Our next question is from Charlie Eisenhood.
Hi, Kona. You're going to make $125,000 guaranteed coming up here in 2022. How does that number compare to what you made in 2021 and in past seasons?
So with my last contract, I didn't have guaranteed money. It was all royalty based. I had a monthly stipend, but obviously it was nothing near what I will be getting now, which is insane to think about. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by noises. Can you repeat that again, Charlie?
You know, as specific as you can be, how does the 125,000 guaranteed, obviously there's still potential to earn above that with incentives and bonuses, but how does that compare to what you earned last year and in years past as a player?
Yeah, so compared, it's not even comparable, I guess you could say. And the fact that I keep on losing my train of thought. No, just the amount of money, it's insane. But like I keep saying, it's not all about this money. It's about this partnership and the fact that Dynamic Disc is willing to, take this chance on me and to commit to me for 4 years and hopefully beyond. We can keep on working on this partnership.
Our next question is from Hayden Henry.
Hey, Kona. Hayden from the PDGA. Record year in disc golf, especially on the women's side, from WGE to U.S. Women's to Throw Pink, and now these record contracts. What is the state of FPO or women's disc golf from FPO down to FA3, and what do we need to do to keep growing that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very big step. Like I keep saying, it's just the money being announced to everyone is huge, and I think, Dynamic Disc is really good about promoting the junior side of things. They host, the Junior World Championships before, and they're really about growing the amateur side of disc golf, which is huge. That's only going to push the FPO side even further in the future, and I can't wait to see it.
Our next question comes from Terry Miller. Yeah, our next question, sorry for that technical glitch, is from Terry Miller.
Hey, Kona, I'm going to follow up a little bit on the conversation about the contract. We've seen a lot of representation happen, whether it's by a specific person or an overall agency. With a contract of this size, was this exclusively negotiated with you and Dynamic, or was there someone else in the middle? And if so, did your dad also have any influence?
Yeah, so it was just me. It was me reaching out to Eric. It started obviously just Eric and I being friends before that, and it was just a conversation that him and I had. It was simply me forwarding him the picture of Kristen Tatar with the 125K and simply asking, dude, like I said, can Dynamic do this same thing? And sorry, I keep on forgetting what I'm saying. Yeah, Terry, I can't remember what he said.
Terry, do you want to repeat that question?
Yeah, I guess the ending of it was really how much of that influence and conversation did you have with your father, knowing he works at a large competing company and he probably wants the best for his daughter, but he probably had mixed emotions and reactions.
My father definitely had mixed emotions when it came to me switching companies. My family's very involved with Innova. He's a marketing director. Mom works for a side branch, and my brother actually stamps discs for that side branch, and so it was very family-oriented at Innova. But yeah, it was a very hard conversation, kind of sitting down with my parents and being like, I love Innova, but like I said, I got to think about my future with Colton and the future of my career, and this might be the next step. And so he wanted me to stay, and there were a lot of conversations back and forth with me and Dave Dunapace with the whole contract situation. And at the end of the day, I saw Dynamic Discs as, the one I wanted to be with, because I knew that they would promote me how I felt like I deserved to be promoted and represented.
We're going to take 3 more questions for Kona. The next question is from Matt Graham.
Hey, Kona, Matt from Nick and Matt Show again. I read somewhere you had made mention that Innova came back with, I don't think you described it as lackluster, but not much more than previous years. Can you tell us what some of those changes in the offer were and how it left you feeling. Did you have expectations for what should have came back after this year's performance?
Yeah, I believe I had 9 top 5 finishes. I won an Elite Series. I was ranked, I am ranked, 9th in the world, and obviously they wanted to promote me to Star Team, and that's a huge deal. And obviously when I started at Innova, I was a sponsored athlete, their lowest team, and Star Team was a dream. And I was not, given a contract that I felt like I truly deserved. And not that it felt like a slap in the face, but I just feel like I bring a lot to the table. Not only, am I on the road full time with Colton, my fiance, I'm putting out so much content. I'm promoting the crap out of the company. I like to say that I bleed. I used to bleed yellow. I would just promote the heck out of Innova, and I felt like what they offered me was pretty much the same as the year before, except for a small few changes, and that was kind of upsetting because I thought, for the commitment that I had of almost 5 years, I thought there was going to be a little more. And obviously when the conversations happened with Dynamic Discs and I went back to Innova, seeing if they could work something out, they did up my contract a lot. But like I said, in the end, I didn't feel like it was worth it.
Our next question is from Zach with the Disc Golf Network.
Hey, Kona, Zach again. Earlier in the offseason on the party with Hannah and Christine, you had mentioned that you feel like it takes more shots to stay ahead of the FPO field these days. Do you feel like you're put at a little bit of a disadvantage knowing that you're kind of coming into the season with all of your shots being new?
Not really. I think I have all the shots that I had before. Now it's just different discs. And I've been playing with my bag for probably a month now. And we just went and played a course in Moreno Valley called Rancho del Sol in California. And it was a golf course, so it was wide open. It's very similar to LVC. And my discs were flying so great. Obviously, I'm trying a few different ones in the headwind, but no, I'm loving my bag right now, and honestly, I've found the discs for those shots already, and now it's just like making it crispy clean for when the season starts.
Our last question for Kona today is again from Europe, Dean.
All right, we'll make this one a fun one, Kona. I'm over here in Europe. When are you coming? What events are you looking forward to? Do you have kind of a 4-year plan for that? We have the new European Pro Tour over here. Has that been part of your decision-making with Dynamic at all?
So I am so excited to come to Europe. I'm really hoping COVID doesn't ruin it again. I've been trying to go for the last 2 years and it just keeps getting canceled. But our plans are, I believe, to go to Sula. I'm looking at Colton with a questionable face. Sula Open and the European Open. I have heard about the European Tour. That might be something that I do in the future. But right now I'm looking just to do those 2 events. I'm really trying to focus on the Disc Golf Pro Tour as, there's more women and more people getting into our sport and hitting the road and being on tour full time. It's going to get harder to get that Disc Golf Pro Tour finale spot, and that's always something that we're looking forward to and something to make it into. So definitely going to hit the Disc Golf Pro Tour all year. I signed up for the tour card and just those few events in Europe, but I'm hoping to go to Sweden in the next few years. Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Kona, for that. Without further ado, we're going to have Ricky Wysocki come to the podium, and we'll again start with questions from our on-site press members, and then we'll follow that up with the press that is joining us via Zoom.
Start us off. Hey,
Congratulations.
thank you, sir.
At the end of your Latitude contract, the rumor was you had about $40,000 or $50,000 guaranteed. You moved over to Innova. The rumor was then about 120, 150 guaranteed a year. Now you're at $1 million. 3 years basically removed from $40,000. What do you think about that kind of growth, and what sort of pressure does that put on you? Because you're not doing a whole lot different than you did 3 years ago. You're pretty much the same guy, playing the same game, getting the same results, but now you're worth 50 times what you were then.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and thank you for bringing it up. But yeah, I was talking to Rusko about it a lot. Is between that time, like I said, 3 or 4 years ago when I was last with Latitude, and now that I'm back, is my brand's grown a lot. I think that's the best way to answer that question. Is my brand, obviously as an athlete, as an influencer, and all the different variables I bring to the table, not just a disc golfer. And I think that's with Dynamic here, they realize that value, and they obviously see that value. And so that's super refreshing, and I think that's what makes the partnership work so well, is that my brand's grown, but also Dynamic's brand has grown, and they're kind of lacking. They were lacking a player like Mike Caliber and like Kona and some of the top level players that they just signed this year. So I think that it's just a great partnership for that reason. It was just great timing. Both our brands have both of our brands have grown since we were last together, and now it's going to be a great 4 years and hopefully beyond.
Hey, Ricky Taginger in KVOE. We spoke about this earlier, and I asked Kona the same question. I wanted to ask you this as well. You talked about validating the sport and things like that. How do these kinds of contracts and these kinds of signings, in your opinion, take disc golf from something that was, not as big as it was just even 2 years ago, and really even elevate it further than what we've already seen?
Yeah, so great question, and I was laughing a little bit because it brings me back to my younger days when I was just a kid, 13, 14, 15 years old when I first started. And of course, when I got into something, I've always been like all-in type of person, which has gotten me where I'm at today, and I'm super thankful that that's how I am. But when I was 14 or 15 years old, I just wanted to play disc golf all the time. And eventually, I had a vision of me being a top professional player, and to go to my parents and, at the time, 2009, 2010, disc golf was not even close to the, spot it is right now. And so if I was to go to my parents and say, hey, I'm going to go on tour, try to become a professional, and at the end of that tunnel, if I do become a top professional, it's I'm living in a car down, traveling to tournaments, scraping, money together to eat off the dollar menu to travel with the disc golf tour. And now I'm here today, in the spot that I am. So that's why I chuckled when you asked that question. To where now the future generations that are in my similar spot can say, hey, it validates, like you said, you're asking about validation. It validates the sport in the kids' head because it allows them to see that there's a future for them, and it allows the parents to say, hey, there's a future for my kid if I want to send them. Eventually colleges are going to have, I don't think that's far away. College is having sponsorships, and so it just all trickles down. So hopefully I can help that trickle down into colleges, sponsorships, and all the different things that it takes for a kid to go from saying I want to play disc golf to being in my spot today. So I think that hopefully I can bridge the gap in validation that way.
You were at the end of your Latitude contract when you moved over to Innova, but there was still years remaining on your Innova contract. What was no longer acceptable about that contract that you felt you needed to get out of it? And was that done amiably? There's rumors that there are contract fights going on with you and Innova.
Yeah, so that's actually a question. My Innova contract agreement is something I can't really talk about right now. Yeah, keep it rolling.
All right. When you moved over to Innova, your driving distance greatly increased, presumably because of the Destroyer. Are you worried about filling that slot, and are you concerned about losing some of the distance that you seem to have put on in the last couple of years?
Yeah, no, I think that for me, it's about being a top professional with my body, working out, exercising, stretching, and doing all the things I need to do to get my body in shape to be able to throw far like that. And working with Disc Golf Strong, having a personalized trainer on tour, following the tour around, and also in the off season. I think that's a big reflection as to why I've gained distance and been able to throw farther and prevent injuries and all the other stuff that comes along with working out and keeping your body in tip-top shape. And so I think that's going to continue. I've obviously got a good off-season program going on, and I think that that's going to show in the off-season when I start bombing ballistas and enforcers and all the different discs I'm going to be throwing. So I think it's more reflective of my workout routines that have changed. And I think that, I'm excited to show people that I can throw just as far or farther with these dynamic discs. He's got good ones, so keep him firing.
From 2018 to 2019, when you left Latitude, your C2 putting percentage went down 10% in that first year. Are you going back to the hard dagger? And does that bring any sort of, you just never seemed like you were super comfortable with the AVR, or I think you changed a couple of different putters, but are you excited about going back to the dagger, assuming that that's what you're going to?
Yeah. So the dagger is, for me, it's a super glidey putter. It fits my hand really well. I've got big hands, and it's a little deeper dish putter than normal, and so it's something to where, I was striving to find a putter like that since I left and never really found it. And I think I kind of showed in my putting. Obviously, I feel like I'm still a great putter, one of the best in the world. But now that I'm switching back to the dagger, I feel like I can firmly say that I have a great chance to be the best putter in the world, not just striving for that. And the dagger is going to help. I don't have to recreate it. I don't have to do anything. I just grab a dagger, and it's the best putter I've ever putted with.
Here you go.
Here you go. And actually, it's funny. We were just messing around with it earlier, and the stiff daggers that my name are on actually are a lot stiffer. The middle flight plate is stiff, which is some putters that are like stiff on the outside aren't stiff in the middle, but these new daggers, my run, are actually different than even just the stock ones in the past. So me coming along, Dynamic allowed me to kind of have some say in the putter and how it feels. And so the stiff plastic allows for a nice consistent release. That's just how I've always been. And are these going to be made in other plastics too? I'm not really sure, but it's super stiff, and I've been loving the dagger.
So along those lines, how did it influence your decision to come back to plastic that you already knew? And then another part to that question is, do you still have old discs from back when you were with Latitude 64 that you're now like, hey, now I'm back with these guys?
Yeah, so, as far as influencing my decision to come back, it definitely helped just seeing how the business operated and how everybody was a family. It was always ended on good terms, and that means a lot as a player. Disc golf being small, I think that Dynamic and the Trilogy family handled things right, even when stuff didn't go their way. And I think that's super important for me to see that, because obviously if something doesn't go your way in business, you can see people's true colors a lot. And Dynamic held themselves, they were very respectable when we parted ways. And so that meant a lot to me, and it stuck in my head and made my decision a lot easier coming back. And what was the second part of your question?
Have some of the old from being with Latitude 64, was it easy just to grab some old discs that you have and get going?
Yeah, so yeah, it was, because that's always the struggle is when you switch to a new disc or something, is that you want to be able to have discs that are maybe broken in a little bit, because every disc is brand new, and some shots you need a disc that's not brand new for a certain shot. So there's a couple harps I saved, like my good go-tos that I kind of stashed away, like not really ever even knowing what was going to happen in the future, but I'm glad I did. And there's a couple like real juicy enforcers that I was like, they're like glow ones, and they're like they were my go-tos, and just kind of threw them in the in the storage, and didn't really know what was going to happen. But I'm glad I did that, because I can go back and fill the gaps until I get some discs broken in to the point where I can replace those.
Last one, I think, for now, maybe.
No, I like it.
So you off season in Arizona. Have you been on the course much with the Trilogy bag in the last little bit? Do you feel like your practice time is out in front of you before the season starts, or that you're already ready to go? You can play a tournament this weekend.
Yeah, so I definitely can't play a tournament this weekend. With everybody being disc golf TMZ lately, it's hard to get out on the course without getting spotted. So I haven't really been able to play. And so I got a bunch of discs sent to my off-season spot, and I'm going to be testing and going to the field every day. So I'll basically have about a month and a half of solid practice, which is plenty of time for me to get used to a new bag, test out all the discs I need to test out, and get myself in tournament shape. And so that's important to me. Obviously, I want to start off the new year in great form, and I'm super excited to get to that point. I'm not there right now, obviously, because I've been working on all this stuff, but me being the player I am, I know what I need to do to get to that spot where I feel comfortable competing at the highest level. And, that's all that matters to me right now.
Your shop that you run has taken a lot of your time and effort lately. Is that something that you turn over at the start of the season to somebody else, or is that something that you continue to work on?
Yeah, no, it's, I've been spending a lot of time with that, and obviously, working with Dynamic on this stuff. But there's, having a manager now, which is another reason why I'm able to get into the spot where I am, because all this stuff that comes along with a big contract like this, I need someone to help. I need to still focus on what I do best, practicing, playing, and competing, and so she allows me to do that. Handles sponsor emails, handles all kinds of different things on the back end, which is a full-time job in itself, and so that's super important, and it means a lot to me to be able to delegate certain things that I need to focus on being the best player I can. And so that's another sign of the growth of the sport, is that the top players are needing somebody to help them with all the behind the scenes stuff, that so that way the general public can see that I'm still a top player, and obviously that's important to me.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I was lying. Okay. So $1 million a year, that changes things as far as 15-hour drives, posting on the local Facebook page, asking if anybody's got a couch you can crash on, things like that. So how does it change your tour lifestyle to have the kind of money to allow you to be, to not have to grind so hard between Sunday and the Thursday in order to get to the next place and get practice and get all that stuff taken care of?
So, yeah, I think that for me, I'm still going to have a van. I'm still going to travel to a lot of the tournaments, and most of it's mostly for me is convenience. I think that I like traveling with the van just because it's space, and I can have all my stuff with me. And being on tour, it's so much more convenient to have all your stuff with you as opposed to flying and not being able to have all your extra backup discs, all the different raincoats, and all the different stuff you may need to be ready for all the different scenarios that may pop up during a tournament. So it's more of a convenience and preparation to have a van instead of just maybe showing up and flying in 2 or 3 days before and then flying out. Yeah, that's that might be what people think now that I have a big contract, but it's not going to change that. I'm still going to stay true to myself. I'm not going to show up in a helicopter like you saw in the announcement video. But yeah, so I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm not going to, I'm not the type of person to where, I'm going to let that get into my head. But and it's not really going to change my travel plans too much. But yeah, it's like I said, it's more just a convenience thing. Thanks for all the great questions, though, Dixon.
We're going to now move to our online press members. Thank you guys for being patient. Our first question will come from Matt Graham. I'm sorry, Teresa Garcia.
No worries. Hi, Ricky. This is Teresa from UDisc. First of all, I wanted to say congratulations. You obviously had an amazing year, and you've consistently been in the top for the last few years. We wanted to ask about if the #1 spot in the world rankings validated your place within the field, and just your general thoughts and opinions on it.
So yeah, thank you for the kind support with the contract, and thanks for all you do with UDisc. It's been awesome to see your guys' growth as well. And yeah, it does validate it. It validates. I mean, I guess that's the word of the day is validation. But it validates a lot of hard work. It validates, like you said, consistent finishes, and that's something that stats can actually help with. Is like when I don't win a tournament, I was finishing in the top 3, which is the more and more this competition gets stiffer, it's gonna that means something, and so. Consistent finishes when you don't win is going to start meaning so much more than it used to. It used to just mean, be win or go home, which in my head, that's pretty much what it is. And you'll see players that used to give up after they didn't win, but I've always been the type of player where I fight till the end and I'm trying to get the best finish I can. But to go back to the UDisc, having their stats, being able to track all that really shows the consistency of a player, and I think that that's what determines the top player in the world, not someone that plays a tournament, wins, and then gives up one of the tournaments they're not in contention and gets 20th. That should reflect on your actual stats and the type of player you are.
Our next question is from Matt Graham.
Hey, Ricky, Matt from Nick and Matt Show. Great to hear this happen for you. Did you ask for more than $1 million a year or an extended contract beyond 4 years? Did you use an agency or an agent to help with this? And then follow that up with saying, does this leave you feeling like you've arrived?
I think that it's something to where that number was, I think, something that I felt like I was worth, and I felt like, you know, that was what I was going to stick with. And the fact that Dynamic saw that value was, you know, something, it meant a lot to me. And then to go back on your question also is, yeah, my tour manager, Ari, I felt real comfortable with her negotiating and helping because she's been around the sport for a couple years now and seen all the dynamics within all the growth of the sport, the growth of my brand personally. And so she can represent me in a way to where even I can't, because she sees it from a little bit more of an outsider standpoint as opposed to me being me. She sees how I influence people, how people respect me, and she tries to relay that information without pumping my head too big, and I'm thankful that she does that. But so she has a good balance of promoting me and to the sponsors and seeing the sports dynamics. And so she helped. She was instrumental in the deal, and I'm super thankful that she's able to do that. And I think that players with managers / agents in the future is the way to go because it's a little bit, you know, it's a lot better for the dynamics of the negotiations.
Our next question is from Zach from the Disc Golf Network.
Hey, Ricky, congratulations on the contract. Just want to kind of follow up on that. You mentioned Ari was instrumental in kind of coordinating and negotiating this deal, but we also noticed that in December you signed with Schaefer Sports Management. Did they have any impact in these negotiations, and how has that process been, kind of signing up with that agency?
So Blake started off Schaefer sports agency, which is Blake who started it. He was you started off as my accountant, and you know he's starting to see the dynamics in the sport and seeing a need for an agency to pop up, and you know I felt really comfortable with him, and so he's handling all my sponsorships outside of disc golf, and so that's why Ari was able to help with this dynamic deal, and then he's obviously working on outside sponsorship opportunities. And so, yeah, there's definitely a place for that. And, you know, I think that you're just going to see more players go in that route that have the value of, you know, someone like me that has a value for outside sponsors to come in and get representation. And it's more a professional look for the sport to have someone like that. And it also boils down to I don't have the time to go out or the connections or any of that stuff. I'm a professional disc golfer. I'm not a professional marketer. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, in the past, disc golf has been, you know, you got to post your own stuff, be your marketer, be all this different stuff. But if you have an agency and a manager, they are going to do all that stuff. And so being able to delegate, and, you know, my brand's grown to the point where I have to delegate to an agency like that to say, hey, this is, you know, here's a sponsorship package. This is what you're getting. Boom, and bring that to the table. And that's super important to me as a player for someone to do that.
Our next question comes all the way from Europe. Dean.
Yeah, hey Ricky. I think you have a strong connection to Europe. We've seen you winning Toonie with the ice cream in your hand and all that kind of stuff, and you with the Nils Marku daggers when you first started with Latitude. How important is it to you, or was this part of your thought process? You know, you talked about leaving Latitude the right way and still feeling the family atmosphere. Having support on both sides of the pond with Europe is such a growing market. Was that a big deal to you when you decided to come back to Dynamic / Latitude? And also, when are we getting you back over here?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. All the great memories at the Toonie with the ice cream. I was eating an ice cream during my celebration speech after I won, so that's where he's coming up with that. Thanks for that great memory. But yeah, no, in my previous contract with Trilogy, it was a lot, dealing with Latitude a lot, and that was great. I think that was almost, it reinforces the family atmosphere even more because I worked with them and loved my experiences with everybody I was working with. And now that I'm coming to Dynamic, it's the same thing. So that just obviously tells me that the core of the company is a company that I want to associate myself with. And I think that, that's obviously important to anybody, and especially important to me as a player to see the core value of a company be exactly what I want to align with. And then going to Europe, I want to go to the European Open, and then the Sula Open is going to be a Pro Tour event, which is going to be huge for Europe, having a 2-week swing over there, and I'm sure it's going to grow from here. But the professionalism in Europe is amazing to see because it almost seems like the European Open was ahead of its time, going over there 4 or 5 years ago. The amount of fans, the amount of spectators, and the amount of professionalism that they had at their tournaments were definitely ahead of the times. And it's great to see the growth over there. And, it's always fun to experience that as a player.
Next question comes from Charlie Eisenhood.
Hi, Ricky. Charlie Eisenhood, Ultra World Disc Golf, also the Upshot podcast. So, you win a couple world championships with Latitude when you were back with Trilogy. And then, relative to you, went through some lean years, including getting Lyme disease, having to miss USDGC end of 2019. How is it for you to see the progression back from being basically bedridden for a while there with Lyme disease to getting back to playing at a high level and then coming out as the consensus top player in 2021, and then essentially doing that in a year where you were able to make this switch and get yourself one of the biggest contracts that disc golf has ever seen?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing up that memory about Lyme, because that was something that was very depressing for me, going from one of the best players in the world to sitting on the couch. I mean, you always hear about NFL, NBA players that go through serious depression. And I can put myself in their shoes because that's kind of what I went through. It's something you can't really relate to until you're in that spot. You go from one of the best players at your sport to just basically can't even walk, let alone go through the motion that it takes to throw a disc. And so, the depression was real, and it was something to where, it just seemed like it was never going to end with the Lyme disease. But I fought through it, and I just changed a lot of stuff that's helped me out today. I think it's something to where you always hear people say, take a positive from a negative, and that's exactly what I did. I was able to fight through it, change my diet, change my supplement program, work with a nutritionist, all stuff I would have never done without contracting Lyme disease. And now I'm still doing that stuff today, and it allows my body to be healthy, my brain to be functioning at a high level, and so all that stuff was almost a blessing in disguise. Now that it's in the past, it's allowed me to form great habits nutritionally, and my health and wellness game plan is a top-notch, top professional game plan, and that's something to where that's how you can take a positive out of a negative, and that's what I did with that situation.
Our next question is from Zach Deloach.
Hey, Ricky, I'm Zach Deloach with the Emporia Gazette. I was wondering if you could talk about how, obviously this deal changes things for your income, but how else does it change things for you, whether it's your perspective on the sport or yourself as a player or your personal brand, your approach to being a professional disc golfer? How does a deal like this change that?
Yeah, no, great to have you here. Local Gazette, that's great. That's awesome to hear that. But yeah, obviously the money's great, but there's to the general public it's going to look like you get a big contract, you can't pass that up. But there's a lot more variables that go into it. Obviously, you've heard about me talking about the Dynamic family, and if you're going to work with a company that's paying you that much money, you better like what you're doing. You better like the company. And so, there's a lot of stuff like that. A lot of checks that Dynamic checked a lot of the boxes that I was looking for. And coming out with my own line of discs, I feel like that's something to where, that doesn't reflect in the dollar amount, but that just shows Dynamic's willing to invest in my brand, and they believe in my brand to come out with a whole lineup of discs specific to me. And And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff within the contract even that doesn't reflect on the $1 million dollar value that means a lot to me. And so, yeah, I think that, obviously the money is great, and, that's something I'm thankful for no matter what. But, yeah, just the dynamic, sees my value in other ways too. Like I said, coming out with my own discs. I mean, that's something I've never had before, and I feel like my brand's never been in a situation to where it can capitalize on that. And now here we are. So, and the other thing is, I'm coming out with like a foundation as well. So the Wysocki Bomb Foundation, I haven't really shared that yet, but that opens me up to be able to give back to the disc golf community that's given me essentially the $1 million contract. So I'm giving back, doing initiatives and working on a lot of stuff, and Dynamics also backing that. So there was a lot of stuff, that Dynamics supporting me without even just being a dollar sign.
Our next question is from Adam Zucker.
Hey, Ricky, congratulations. Adam Zucker from CBS Sports, but also a recent member of Team Dynamic. And I'm calling dibs for whenever we get a pro-am, but that's not really why I logged on. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. One is, had you ever been in a helicopter before that shoot? And if you have a story that speaks to the growth of disc golf, because I can think of this past year where the courses were more crowded than ever, the discs were more sold out than ever, and now players are making more money than ever. But if you have a story from when you first started that kind of traces the growth of the sport to where we are now.
Yeah, no, great to have you here, man. It's awesome that you're into disc golf, and it'd be awesome to play around with you someday. That's awesome. They do pro-ams. I played a pro-am this year or last year, so I'm sure we'll have to line one up. But yeah, as far as the growth of the sport, it's been amazing, and I'll first start off by saying I'm thankful to be a face of the sport, and be involved since 2012 or 13 when I really first turned pro, to where I'm at today. And like Dixon said earlier with the question, making 40 or 50,000 back then was market value, and now you see the market value now. That shows you that the amount of fans, the amount of dedicated fans and followers that are in the sport, and they're willing to support and buy a disc from me is amazing. And I think that going back to your pro-am thing, doing a pro-am with a bunch of like UFC fighters and Andrew Zimmern and a bunch of other people, like the pro-am we did, it's amazing to see them have the outlet, using disc golf as an outlet from whatever profession they have. And maybe you do the same, which it sounds like, yeah, you're a sports reporter and you may play disc golf on the side just to kind of refresh your mind from all the stuff that you're doing. And then you jump into my shoes where you're a professional athlete and that's what you do. So it's just awesome to see the amount of people that enjoy the sport in so many different ways. I've played with a homeless person before, and I've played with, everyone in between. And I've played, and that's homeless people to multi-millionaires, billionaires, whatever you want to say. And so that is why disc golf is so amazing. It's so accessible to so many different groups of people and walks of life. And I'm just it never ceases to amaze me the people you run into, and everyone is so welcoming and so just so heartwarming to share experiences with so many different people that enjoy the sport in so many different ways.
Ricky, he asked about, was that the first time you've been on a helicopter?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Got a little bit too into that question. But yeah, first time I've been in a helicopter. I mean, yeah, if Dynamic wants to fly me in at a tournament and drop me off on the first tee with the helicopter every week, I wouldn't be opposed to that. So
we'll put that in our notes.
Yeah.
Next question is from Corey Morrell.
Hey, Rick. Congrats on the contract. Corey here, Johnny Disc Golf. You left your Innova contract with some years still on the table to join the Dynamic Discs family or Trilogy family. Is there anything in the contract now, considering the $250,000 signing bonus, to make sure that you won't do that again, or is it just a good faith agreement?
So the agreement with Innova I can't really talk about, but I can talk about in the future with Dynamic that we got obviously word of the contract and everything to where both parties are happy. And I think that dealing with Dynamic, we obviously realized the growth of the sport and where it's at and how contracts have to be drawn up. And so we definitely took that into account. And so, yeah, I think that shows the growth of Dynamic and the professionalism that Dynamic is working with. But it's something to where, yeah, I think that the growth of the sport, we need contracts that are, important to both sides and negotiations. But it's definitely a contract that there's a lot involved. Obviously, $1 million contract. There's a lot of wording, a lot of things going on in it, and I think that's something that's going to obviously be happening in the future. So, yeah.
Our next question is from Terry Miller.
Hey, Ricky, disc golf guy here. A few years ago, we saw this enormous contract come about from your rival, Paul Macbeth. I think it's pretty storied that you two are rivals. That talked about $10 million for 10 years. At that point, did it really set the bar or a new standard for where disc golf contracts were going? And did that number factor into your negotiation with Dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, started a trend. Obviously with Dynamic signing a 4-year contract, it's, obviously it's something to where I have a strong feeling that, it's going to continue a lot more than that. But we just wanted to, put the first 4 years on contract and say, hey, this is our starting point and kind of go from there, as opposed to doing a longer term deal like Paul did. And that's great. I just wasn't, in that spot right now in my career. Me working I have a really good feeling signing the contract with Dynamic that it's going to extend a lot longer than that. And I'm super excited to see everything that transpires throughout the next 4 years to get to that point. But Paul, Paul, he obviously did a lot for the sport, first one to really go public with his contract. And so I'm definitely thankful that, it kind of gives the players a little bit more value as far as knowing how much they're worth and that kind of stuff within the disc golf world, and the negotiations makes it a lot easier as opposed to being in the dark and not really knowing how many discs you sell or what kind of numbers you're doing.
We've got 3 more questions. The next one is from Zach with Disc Golf Network.
Hey, Ricky, Zach again. I want to kind of transition and look forward now into the future. You're the last player to average 3rd or better over the course of an entire season. You did that in 2017. I just want to kind of get your take on, is that stat line out of reach? Is that kind of statistic something that you don't think can be achieved again, given how deep the field is? Or is somebody out there going to get it someday?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to think about. I mean, yeah, I think that's a big reason, like I said, why I won, Player of the Year, because I was just finishing consistent, and it's even harder now than it was, like you said, in 2017. But yeah, the competition's getting really good, and that's something to where I love that as a competitor. I want to be pushed. That's part of the fun of being a competitor. You don't want to be complacent. You want to always have someone pushing you, and so I love that. I strive for people to do that, and it just makes me have to work harder. It's still hard to play at a top level consistently, no matter what sport you're in, and so that's always a challenge, and I love a challenge. And so yeah, the more players that get good, it's just going to be harder and harder to have consistent finishes. But me as a competitor, that's what I'm going to be striving for, is to do what's challenging and finish in the top 3 and compete for wins consistently.
Our next question is from Charlie Eisenhood.
Hey, Rick. So disc golf doesn't have a salary cap. This is not a sports league in a traditional sense, but I think it's fair to say that the quasi-salary cap that manufacturers have in terms of dollars to put towards player sponsorships has gone up a dramatic amount, particularly in the last couple of years amidst the growth during the pandemic. I mean, we saw the PDGA go from getting 100,000 members all time, from 1968 to 2017, and then adding another 100,000 in just the last 4 years. So, you signed this 5-year deal with Innova, and you wanted to get out early, and I think it's pretty obvious why, because, the deal you signed then was with a different salary cap, and all of a sudden there's way more opportunity to make much bigger dollars from an endorsement deal. So my question is, with you signing a 4-year deal, do you feel like that's the right length to be signing given the trajectory we've seen the sport on? Or are you worried that you're going to be here in 2 years wishing that you'd signed a shorter contract? And as a slight addendum to that question, are there any options or renegotiation periods in this contract that could allow you to come back to the table and renegotiate if, in fact, it turns out that disc golf continues to grow at a very fast pace?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I might have to ask you to restate a couple parts of it. But I'll start it off by saying 4 years I felt like it was a good number. That's kind of, what you just said is a big reason why I didn't do 10 years like Paul did, is because you're not really, you never know what the sport's going to do in X amount of years. But yeah, so having it 4 years I felt like was a good number. It's obviously something where it's hard to really, you're basically having to gamble on yourself, what you think, for me. And I felt like I'm going to be a top player for, I would say, disc golf, 36, 37 is really when you start fading off a little bit. And if I can combat that with good health, working out, good diet, stuff like that, then I can prolong that. But I think 4 years is good. I was comfortable. And the most important thing is I was comfortable signing that contract. And, if with Dynamic, it's a minimum of $1 million. So that's just minimum. If the sport blows up, if my royalties go up, that Dynamics, you're realizing that, hey, there's upside even more on top of that. So there's really that's just a bottom line number. It's not something to where it's not like I'm going to be sitting in this contract, and even if I'm making potentially way more, I'm still going to be able to capitalize on that. And I think that the way the contract's worded, that's important to me. And that's the other thing is, like you said about salary cap, is all contracts for certain players are different. Some are royalty based. This one's obviously $1 million guaranteed. And so there's contracts all in between. It just depends on the caliber of player, the type of player you are. And within that question, there's all kinds of different players. There's players that have a great social media presence. There's players that may not play as well. There's players that, are great players, may not have a good social media presence, and everywhere in between. And I think that's why I'm worth so much, is because over the past couple of years, my social media game, marketing, all that stuff went really good, well. And my play is top level. So I've kind of partnered the two together, which are two huge variables for a company like that Dynamic saw that wanted to made them want to partner with me. And so I felt like me doing that and changing my social media and marketing in a way to where it really helped grow my fan base and grow my fans is something that was important to me. And I think that obviously, as a player, you want to have both those ingredients if you want to succeed in this disc golf market.
Our last question comes from Matt Graham.
Hey, Ricky, Matt, Nick and Matt show. When you started playing disc golf, you've told stories about sneaking out to the course, I think down the road from your house. You were homeschooled. You had all these opportunities to do that. You talked about at points your dad not being fully supportive of this disc golf journey or this career choice. Can I ask, did you ever envision a moment like this back then? And then how big of a moment is this for you? And then finally, what did your dad say when he found out?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, it's being homeschooled and being able to play disc golf. That was my roots. That's where it started. And to put a long story short, that's where, a big reason why I was able to practice and get to a point where I was able to go on tour at the time and obviously put myself in the spot where I am now. But as a 16-year-old kid trying to tell my dad, I'm going to skip my high school graduation, go on tour and pursue this disc golf thing. And, hey, the top player in the world makes $50,000. Yeah, this is what I want to do. He wasn't supportive. But for me, I was the, young, stubborn kid. I'm like trying to prove to my dad that I can make it, even when he doesn't think there's a future here. And so that was always motivation for me, that to prove to my dad, even when he didn't think that there was a future. And so it's definitely amazing to be able to call your dad and say, hey, like, this is the contract I'm getting. And, it was kind of like, I think he was definitely shocked at the time, but I think after I won my first world championship, it really started, sinking in with him. Like, hey, this is it's here to stay. This career is viable. It's a viable option, and now it's something where he's definitely always, ever since then, he's been supportive. And so that's another reason why that story I said earlier with young kids coming up is it's going to make it easier for them, even though it was a hard time for me growing up trying to convince my dad I wanted to be a professional disc golfer. It's going to make it easier for kids in the future, and that's why it hits home with me, and it's so genuine for me to bring that stuff up. And then what was your last part of your question that I didn't answer yet?
No, you did a good job. Just how big of a moment was this for you in the whole scheme of things, thinking back from where you started to where you are now? How big of a moment is this for you? Have you arrived? Is that how you would determine that?
No, I think so. I think that, it's kind of capping off, all the times that dedication, and you always hear athletes and everybody say that, and dedication's a great word for it, because it's like, yeah, it's sleeping in your car, going from tournament to tournament before the sport's grown. Yeah, I've grown with the sport a lot, but it's not always been great. Obviously, growing with the sport, I'm thankful that I have been growing with it and being a top face for the sport for, almost 8 or 10 years now. But like I said, it hasn't been always roses and daisies. So there was times I couldn't afford hotel rooms, had to sleep in the parking lot, eating off the dollar menu. Now you look at me now, I've got nutritionists that working with full-time nutritionists, eating really super clean and just treating myself like a true professional. And I'm glad I'm able to do that and continue doing that, obviously with this contract. And it's something to where, yeah, it's important to me now. The health and wellness aspect of this sport is changing, and I think a lot of people have come up to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And now I can share with them what I'm doing, working with professionals like nutritionists and all different people to optimize my body to continue playing at a high level and stay healthy.
Thanks, Ricky.
Yep. Did you have one more? Yeah, one more question. Okay.
Your signing bonus was in Bitcoin. Why?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. So I've just been a firm believer in crypto. I think that it's cool for me. Obviously, it's an investment, and it's kind of a little bit of a gamble because it's a pretty volatile asset. But it's something to where I'm just passionate and genuine about crypto. I think it's going to be a future currency, and I have a lot of faith in it. And I think it's cool that Dynamics, willing to do that and work with me on paying me in crypto. And so that's an important thing to me. And like I said, I think there's a big crossover in the disc golf world, and I just wanted to share that with them and show people that I'm a crypto guy, and it's I have a passion for it. So it's super exciting to announce that.
We're good.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Thanks, Ricky.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, they're gonna give me some discs or something.
Well, you can hold them up right here. And
Cool. Yeah.
wanted to tell everybody thanks for coming to the press conference. We had almost 5,000 concurrent viewers on YouTube at one point, which is just amazing. I want to let everybody know that to support both Kona and Ricky, you can go to dynamicdiscs.com. We've got a ton of awesome discs, including these beauties that Ricky is holding right now. It looks like a harp, an enforcer.
Glow plastic. It looks like the German plastic was what Rusko was saying.
Yep.
German plastic Explorer, and then the Orbit, what Latitude's calling the Orbit Felon. So that's really cool. And yeah, we're gonna have these later available. They're available right now, and then we're gonna be signing them later at the
store. That's right.
Store.
There'll be a store signing at 3 o'clock Central Time. You can
It's
tune
on
into
here,
that.
right?
It's actually at the store.
But it's live, isn't it? Are they doing it live too?
It'll be live.
Okay,
It will
cool.
be. So, Ricky, thanks
Awesome.
again.
Thank
and
you.
Thank the local press that came out to the press conference, as well as everyone that joined us via Zoom. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
y'all.